Hello, how is everyone? It is very late. Very, very late. You always think of whale oil? Oh, you mean from the title. It might have been when the expression came out. What is this? I'm just checking up in the content suggestions in my Discord server. Destiny did some Holocaust revisionism here to defend Ron DeSantis' education department when it dictated that kids should be taught the benefits of slavery that black people had back in the day. Let's look at this. I'm kind of curious. A little morbidly curious, if I'm being honest. Well, let's pop this on the screen. Here we go. Or actually, you know what? I'm going to use this. There we go. I found the same VOD, and it's Destiny doing Holocaust Revisionism 2. The timestamp. Alright, let's see the first one first, I guess. I'm talking to him tomorrow, so this is excellent timing.
It's obviously a way to downplay slavery. Any argument otherwise is disingenuous. How about you try this? For once in your life, try not putting morality first, and try putting the fact first, and then doing the moral analysis afterwards. Because this is the reason why nobody trusts anybody anymore in this fucking society. Because everybody morally loads every fucking analysis they make. All of slavery was horrible. Every fucking slave hated it. Every single slave master was evil. Blah, 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 blah. First, that's not true. That's probably not a true accounting of slavery.
Not all slavery was horrible?
Slavery, right? Some slaves probably did better than others. Some master people were probably nicer than others.
What's this?
Cry means a low, creaky kind of voice, which is used at the end of sentences by young American females of a certain type.
Imagine if public schools taught about the valuable skills Jews learned in concentration camps. It's distasteful and disrespectful. I mean, history is just history.
History is just history. Profound.
I don't know if Jewish people... I don't... Like, let's say, for instance, it was the case that once the concentration camps were liberated, that, like, some Jewish people went and they started businesses based on some skills. I mean, you could teach it if you wanted to. I don't know if... I thought in the concentration camps, I thought most of the labor was just, like, menial, like, retard...
Okay. That's a sentence. One moment. Let me turn this AC off. So you don't have blasting in the background. Oh. It's really an intimidating intellect, isn't he? Okay. Well, while we're on this, Daedalus was actually kind enough to send me a copy of said curriculum, so I am a little curious. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. Won't that be fun? Daedalus, where are you? There we are. Okay. Boom, boom. There we go. Oh, it actually almost kind of fits, but we're going to do this instead. So this is... Oh, what did I just move? It's the wrong thing. Here we go. Okay. Oh, why is there music playing on my TV? I'm very organized, as you can see. Florida State Academic Standards, Social Studies 2023. Strands, African American History, Civics and Government, Holocaust Education. Holocaust Education. Why would that even... I have to say I'm a little bit perplexed. So, world history, wars that America has been involved in, things like that, makes sense to me as a part of your core curriculum. Holocaust education is dicey for me. Not because I don't think it should be taught, but because it's an odd area of fixation. Genocide studies, that would make more sense. Broaden it out. Emphasizing this one, it's almost like a History Channel approach to education, which I don't necessarily like. Financial literacy, that's good. American history, that's important. It is your country. World history, that's good. Humanities, I don't know what this means in this context. Psychology, why on earth would you teach... This is for public school, right? This is for high school. Why would you even have psychology? Nothing in psychology is going to be anything less than extremely contentious. Geography, alright. I would probably wrap it into history if I'm honest. Economics. What kind of economics are you teaching in high school? And sociology, okay. Hang on, do we have confirmation as to what level this is being deployed at? You were taught econ in this? Really? I wasn't taught econ in high school. Well, here's the thing. I don't know why you would have a psychology class in high school. I don't know what that would even look like. Is it just going to be like a survey course? Because I can't see why you would do anything more than that. Why's it coming out warm? Okay. African American history strand. Let's see. Recognize African American inventors and explorers. Okay. Identify African American artists. African Americans who demonstrated civic service. Oral traditions and folk tales of African Americans. That's cool. Nancy the Spider. I remember Nancy the Spider. I also remember a novel that wasn't very good by Neil Gaiman called The Anansi Boys. Heroism, patriotism. I don't know why Barack Obama is on the list, but okay. Here we go. Examine the life of African Americans in the colonial era. Clarification. Instruction includes what life was like for the earliest slaves in the emancipated North America. Examine the Underground Railroad and how former slaves partnered with other free people and groups in assisting those escaping from slavery. Examine key figures and events in abolitionist movements. Examine the roles and contributions of significant African Americans during westward expansion. Influences and contributions. Here we go. Identify Afro-Eurasian trade routes and methods prior to the development of the Atlantic slave trade. First black president? Yeah, but that doesn't make him a patriot, right? Like, that benefited him, too. And he wasn't... Look, the point is he wasn't a hero. Maybe a notable, very notable, but not a... You know what I mean. Examine the evolution of the labor force and the use of indentured servitude contracts. Instruction includes the similarities and differences between serfdom and slavery. That's good. Instruction includes how slavery was utilized in Asian, European, and African cultures. Given this is the African American history strand, it depends on what's meant by Asian, I suppose. This is prior to the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, so that explains it. So that makes sense. Comparative treatment of indentured servants of European and African extraction. Okay. History and evolution of slave codes. Examine the service and sacrifice of African patriots during the Revolutionary Era. Crispus Attucks, Peter Salem, da-da-da-da. Okay, here we go. Benchmark clarifications. So here we go. Examine the various duties and trades performed by slaves, for example, agricultural work, painting, carpentry, tailoring, domestic service, blacksmithing, transportation. Clarification. Instruction includes how slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. There we go. That's it. Instruction includes how slaves developed skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit. See, I think what kind of stands out about this is that there's something sort of perversely obvious about this. Obviously, if in the course of being a slave, you are trained to perform the task you are enslaved to perform, once freed, you then still know how to perform the task. And so obviously, you can benefit from skills you learned while enslaved. What's odd is not that that's the case, or that's recognized as being the case. What's odd is that this merits clarification, special clarification. Because the fact that they knew how to perform these trades makes the benefit of knowing how to do them obvious. The benefit is you can do these things. So if you're freed, you've been doing agricultural work, you can do agricultural work, obviously. But why does it need to be emphasized that this was a benefit of slavery? That's why this is weird. It's really weird that you would write this down in particular. It's subtle, though. It is subtle. It's subtle enough that a disinterested person who's looking at this will read this and go, whatever, not a big deal. You guys are making a fuss about nothing. So it's good bait, I guess. Cotton picker is not generally considered a skilled job. Well, they're specifying here trades, right? So up here, they talk about the cotton industry. And then in this separate section, they're talking about trades. Not just any industry they're a part of, but trades. So painting, carpentry, tailoring, domestic service, etc. And that's accurate. Like slaves were put to work on trades and did learn skills. There's a book. I'm trying to remember what it was called. But at one point, one of the characters is put to work painting pots at a table. Alright, so that's that. The problem is not that this is a wrong sentence. Slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Trivially obvious, right? You have a skill, sometimes you can apply it to your personal benefit, and how you acquire that skill is sort of irrelevant. However, when we're talking about the history of slavery in particular, and we've already granted that they gained skills, emphasizing that the skills benefited them as a separate sentence by itself is weird. Agriculture also isn't unskilled labor, that's true. Depending on what you're doing, right? Because, picking produce is also technically a part of agriculture. Alright, there was something in the Holocaust studies section. American History Strand. Oh, is this all the American History Strand? Does this not go... Oh, here we go, Economic Strand. Here, let's find out where this is again. So, Holocaust education. I guess we could just... Here we go. Students will define anti-Semitism as prejudice against or hatred of the Jewish people. That's actually not a correct definition of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is prejudice against Semitic people, which includes Jews. Students will recognize the Holocaust as history's most extreme example of anti-Semitism. Students will identify examples of anti-Semitism, each calling for aiding or justifying the killing or harming of Jews. So the few slaves that learned to trade and the fewer who were freed and got a job and that trade benefited. Well, consider this though, right? Like, how about Haitian Revolution, right? So, butchered the slave-owning class, and then were able to purpose their knowledge towards themselves, stuff like that. Like, once again, trivially obvious. What's weird is not that it's being noted that individuals who were freed then used what they learned in captivity for their own benefit. What's weird is that this curriculum is highlighting this as a point of special interest when it's trivially obvious. No mention of Holocaust denial is an example of anti-Semitism. That one's tricky. It's tricky because it's true. If you're if you, for whatever reason, find your way to actively denying the event of the Holocaust, you're probably an anti-Semite. But that statement takes the form of a historical skepticism. Actually, a historical skepticism, but a historical skepticism. So it's easy to be slippery with that one. But you're right. It's interesting that that's not included, especially since this is a common feature of anti-Semitic movements today. Did I miss? Nope. Hang on. Okay, I guess we need to go farther down. Page 73. What on earth? Okay, well, I guess this is the other part of it. Examine the Holocaust as a planned and systematic state-sponsored persecution and murder of European Jews by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. Clarification, this is always where the devil lies. Students will describe the basic beliefs of Judaism and trace the origins and history of Jews in Europe. Okay. Analyze how anti-Semitism led to and contributed to the Holocaust. Here we go. Identify examples of anti-Semitism, mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews, demonizing Israel by using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism to characterize Israel or Israelis. That's not a part of Holocaust history, though. State of Israel is very much post-Holocaust. God, this is such a mess. Are we going to find a line that talks about how the Holocaust taught the Jewish prisoners essential skills that they then benefited from? Here we go. Holocaust survivors following World War II. Eichmann trial. Significance of learning from Holocaust-era primary sources created by Jews who perished and those who survived. Benchmark clarifications. Clarification 1. Students will analyze examples of anti-Semitism. Okay, we read this. These are blank pages. I guess that's the end. Well, I don't know. I'll bring on Daedalus to talk about this, because he's gone through this in depth, so he'll know if there's anything else to look for. But, yeah. That's a thing. Thank you, Ian Crone, for the $5. Hey, President Sunday, what was the last good sci-fi or fantasy book you read? It's 2, actually. So right now, I'm going through the Dune series. I'm reading Dune Messiah at the moment. This copy that's older than me. The last good one I read was Dune. It took me like 3 years, because I just stopped halfway through, and started doing a bunch of other things. I reread the beginning, and then I read the end, and it's fantastic. In terms of what is actually really new that I finished, this one here. Come on, there we go. I have to clean up this place so badly. The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor. This is in the book list that I published this morning. I guess it was this afternoon. It's morning for me. All of the papers away. It had Holocaust denial in that last footnote, did it? Did I miss it? Hang on. Wait. Where? Oh, you mean it mentioned Holocaust denial. Yeah. Gotcha. Anywho, that's that. There's a new Dead Space video I want to look at. Fermi paradox stuff. My jam. As longtime viewers will know. This is by a Kyle Hill. And it has...
Earth.
Hey,
Scientists have been estimating these values for a long time, and
Pause, damn you. I hate how YouTube just autoplays. Alright. No, that's not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be... there. Okay, it's close enough. So this is, I'm going to make me a bit smaller. I've got a strong enough ego, I can handle it. I'll make this a bit bigger. There we go. I did a video on a political analysis of the necromorphs from Dead Space years ago. And that only got 2,000 views, even though it took so much more work to do. But instead we're going to watch How Dead Space Solves the Fermi Paradox by Kyle Hill. And pick it apart if it sucks. So, hold on to your butts. Let's go. Might help if I turn the audio on.
where is everyone? And no, I don't mean all of you humans back there on that increasingly hot blue marble. I mean, where are all the aliens? In a universe this vast, surely there must be other forms of life that are as depressed to be meat as we are, right? Well, if one of my favorite sci-fi video games is correct, aliens are indeed out there. We're just never gonna meet them because, well, they're already dead. Ooh.
It's a spooky.
Scary.
Now entering the facility.
A lower estimate on the number of stars in this galaxy is 100 billion. A lower estimate on the number of galaxies in this universe is another sweet hundy billy. A lower estimate for the number of planets around each star in the universe is at least 1. This gives us an enormous figure, so that even if the chance of life arising in the universe is like winning a megabucks jackpot Powerball lottery thing, it still means that there are 100 million planets out there with alien life on it. So I ask you again, where's everyone? This discrepancy that we are highlighting is known as the Fermi paradox, named after Chad Estimator and famous...
Well, no, because number of planets doesn't count if the number of planets that have the conditions of life is infinitesimally small. So it could be the case that, yeah, there are so many planets in the universe, but what percentage of them are life permitting, and what are the conditions of being life permitting, and so on and so forth.
Italian physicist Enrico Fermi. Now, there are many potential solutions to this paradox, from the fact that we may indeed be alone in the universe, or that civilizations just tend to wipe themselves out before they can reach out to other civilizations. Today, we're going
And right here, like, why would you assume... Why jump to civilizations? There's only... How many civilizations have arisen on this planet? We have uncounted different types of life forms.
focus on a different solution, one offered by one of my favorite video games ever, Dead Space. Its solution is that space seems dead out there because it literally is dead. Ooh.
Well, what Dead Space does is it treats the necromorphs as a kind of great filter. So the idea is, basically, there is a principle or a thing in the universe that basically combs through and prevents life from going past a certain point of development or from emerging at all. Stuff like that. And so creatures like us don't get far enough to reach out to other creatures like us because they get caught in the filter halfway through. And the way the necromorphs work, how I conjecture they work, is that they specifically target intelligent life, and indeed create intelligent life by dropping sort of like the... Because in Dead Space, the markers aren't just devices for turning animals into necromorphs. They also cause intelligence in humans. It's sort of implied in the Dead Space novels that they're... It's sort of like in 2001: A Space Odyssey with the monolith that causes the apes to have the intelligence to use tools. Something like that sort of happened. Because... And the reason why it would do this is because once you have intelligent life is very good at preventing other forms of intelligent life from appearing. They colonize other planets and things like that. And so if your goal, as like a creator species of the necromorphs, is to counter the threat of other advanced civilizations, you can... Your best defense is a good offense. You can create those other civilizations yourself, so that they themselves network between all these different planets, prevent the arisal of a diversity of other species, and so make the assimilation of other species much more efficient. Not only that, but also mean that you don't miss. Like as you're going through the cosmos, which is very vast, you don't miss planets that could develop life, that could develop technology and intelligence and power that could destroy you.
Isn't that spooky, Arya? Arya, isn't that spooky?
Spooky.
Oh, to the moon! What we don't find out until Dead Space 3 is that the so-called necromorphs aren't the end of that ghoulish life cycle. No, these eldritch horrors are. Brethren or brother moons. Literally giant tentacle monsters that float through space and they're the size of the moon. Their life cycle goes something like this. First, they start sending out electromagnetic waves that make any intelligent life in the area go totally cray-cray and build so-called markers. Now, these markers also send out...
It's also like a built-in control mechanism. So this clearly isn't just a part of its life cycle. It's like something it evolved to do. Why? Because if it did, what's the more plentiful source of nutrients in the universe? Is it intelligent organisms like advanced animals, or is it solar radiation? Where does the energy in our bodies come from? It's solar radiation. There's absolutely no reason why they would be combing for intelligent life, or life for that matter at all, when it has direct access to star energy. So here's why it would be really useful to design a creature like the necromorphs to feed only on intelligent life. Once they've combed through all of the planets that might possibly harbor intelligent species, they stop because there's nowhere else for them to go, because they only hunger for intelligent life. Boom. So once you've if they've got like a donut, if there's like a donut universe shape, I don't know what it's called exactly, but like the idea that when you go to the farthest reach of space, kind of like in asteroids, you come out the other side, maybe flipped around. At no point in the distant future will the necromorphs, for whatever reason, spin around and come back to get the creator species.
Electromagnetic radiation to animate any dead flesh in the area, somehow. Then that dead flesh goes on to kill other stuff to make enough dead flesh. Once there's enough
Necromorphenheimer. That's good. I'm going to steal that.
dead flesh, it is all flung up into the upper atmosphere somehow, where it congeals somehow into a giant tentacled moon that then eats the rest of the planet's biomass and continues the cycle anew. This is Dead Space's solution to the Fermi paradox. Space seems dead because these brother moons are floating around everywhere, gobbling up everything. Now, I gotta admit, brother moons are some of my favorite creature creations in sci-fi, but it all got me thinking. Is there actually enough biomass on Earth to make a moon-sized meat thing?
No, there's not, but if you actually look at the brother moons, what you will notice is that they are not all biomass. There's actual rock in there. They basically use material from the planet itself as a skeleton, and then, because once again, it's a highly wasteful thing. The point is not to get enough biomass to create a brother moon. The point is to absorb all of the biomass on a planet so that no biomass is left.
Winston, calm down. Clean your tentacles last Tuesday. You know what day it is. It's not Tuesday. That's why I named it that. It's not Tentacle Tuesday. You know what it is. In the vacuum of space, outside of any other...
If this happened IRL, could you save us Sunday? I think the way you would fight the necromorphs is by trying to poison them. You would need to make some kind of organism that gets absorbed with the biological matter on a planet that it can't assimilate, which does something to irreparably corrupt the necromorph DNA itself. Have you heard of All Tomorrows? No, let me take a look. By the way, the pollen is really bad right now, so I apologize if I seem out of breath. All Tomorrows. Oh, it's a novel. 2006 work of science fiction and speculative evolution, written and illustrated by the Turkish artist C.M. Korsman under the pen name Nemo Ramjet. I like that. Explores a hypothetical future path of human evolution set from the near future to 1 billion years from the present. Several future human species evolved through natural means and through genetic engineering. Inspired by the science fiction works of Olaf Stapledon and Edward Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. I mean, so is Foundation, apparently. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I have an entire box set of Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire here, actually, by the Folio Society. I've only read Volume 2, but it's fun.
other large, dominating gravitational influence like Yo Mama. Anything with mass will pull on anything else with mass and eventually come together. So if you had enough dead flesh in space after a convergence event from the necromorphs...
You're describing a parasite, not a poison. I'm describing a poison using a parasite as a vector. The problem with parasites... well, unless they're like literally eating your essential organs, in which case that's the problem with parasites. But the problem with parasites and bacteria and whatnot is not just that they devour your flesh, it's also that the byproducts they leave are toxic to your system. Devouring necromorph flesh doesn't kill them. You need something that disrupts their ability to assimilate, that disrupts their metabolism.
It would start to accumulate in a sort of gross meat moon kind of thing, and if you had enough of this dead flesh, you could even have it differentiate like a planet with a molten, bubbly, gross flesh core. Thanks for that, Randall Munro of XKCD. So, to evaluate today's proposed solution to the Fermi paradox, what we're going to do is see how big a meat moon would be if it consumed all biomass on Earth and then compare that to other known moons and the game. And
I think a virus would be more effective. Yeah, but the problem is you need to get the virus into the necromorph moon, right? So one of the problems we have with getting a disease into the necromorph moon itself is that we don't know what levels of temperature, radiation things are exposed to in the course of being pulled up and assimilated into the moon. So we need something that can basically make the journey in. You know?
thankfully, the calculations are actually super simple for this.
Easy for you.
No, Arya, anyone can do them. With the power of mathematics, you can...
Because if it's a virus, I don't know if it would actually survive the process of assimilation itself. Unless you wanted to inject it directly into the moon. See, my logic is, when the necromorphs get carried up, they seem to be sort of intact. The necromorphs do. They seem to have, like, full, like, limbs and whatnot as they're sort of flying upwards. So, stands to reason if you had an assimilated parasite of some kind. I don't know.
Hey, Winston, grab a calculator. I'll lead you through it. Dang. So, how do we go about estimating the mass and size?
Bacteria can survive radiation. I mean, bacteria can be parasites, though, right? It's kind of my point. Viruses aren't that good at surviving radiation, though. Remember they were talking about COVID would disappear because it's a little bit sunnier in April in, like, 2019?
Is of a brother moon. First, we need to know how much biomass is on Earth. Scientists have been estimating these values for a long time, and estimates vary across studies. But generally, in terms of the distribution of carbon in everything from viruses to your butt, all the animals on Earth represent actually a tiny, tiny fraction of the total biomass. There is more weight in all the other kingdoms, like protists and archaea and fungi. Bacteria outweigh every animal on Earth 50 times over, and the vast majority of carbon on Earth is in plants. The latest studies calculate that all of this living stuff weighs around 1.2...
Bacteria are alive, though, and they can be assimilated, right? I don't know if bacteria can be assimilated. Like, it seems like... So, in Dead Space, I forget what they're called, but the swarmers or whatever, there are these little, like, scraps of animated flesh that can move around. So it seems like the necromorphs don't actually rely on functioning limbs from previous entities in order to, like, create mobile units. But I don't know if that extends to, like, full assimilation of every bit of organic matter in the thing, or if that's just sort of an appropriation of, like, the nervous system, the musculature, etc., etc. So that's an interesting question.
Teratons. Now, we're going to do this back of the envelope and assume that all Earth goop has roughly the same density. How about water? We can then divide Earth's total biomass by this density to get the potential total volume of a dead meat marble with tentacles. Doing so, the maximum volume that a brother moon from Dead Space could get from Earth is over 1,000 cubic kilometers. That sounds like a lot, right? Well, if you have enough mass in space, it will act to spherify itself via gravity. Therefore, a neat moon with sufficient mass would have a volume equal to the volume of a sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed. Now, as the astute among you will notice, that means that if we plug in our volume value and solve for r here, we will get the radius of this eldritch monstrosity, and then we can compare that radius to other known moons and to the game. So, do that. Go ahead. Feel free to pause the video now. I'll wait here, or I'll lead you through it in just a couple seconds. Winston!
No.
Just smack a tentacle onto a calculator and it'll stick there and... The answer is a moon with a radius over 6 kilometers long. Now, that sounds huge. Anything overhead in a sphere like that would be really, really disturbing. But is it like moon-sized disturbing? Well,
it's not really moon-sized in Dead Space. The last boss of Dead Space 3, like, you see the head inside of it, and it's like the size of a house. It's not that big.
Comparing it to the radius of Earth's moon has a radius 260 times larger, meaning that if all life on Earth was spherified into a civilization-extinguishing meat orb of doom, and gross meat, remember, it wouldn't be any larger or any more imposing than any other moon in the solar system that you could probably name. Now, Winston, I know what you're thinking. Don't get tentacle envy, my man. There are dozens of really tiny moons in our solar system around our gas giants. So some of those are only like a kilometer across, meaning that a meat moon made out of all life on Earth would still be a moon.
Why does it matter? If anything, actually, like, the need to make them moon-sized seems like a massive disadvantage. It would be much more efficient to make more smaller necromorph moons than to make them quote-unquote moon-sized, whatever that means.
You're welcome. Given that Dead Space's proposed solution to the Fermi paradox actually does result in a mini moon's worth of mass, the next question is, how realistic is a brother moon as a creature? Well, interestingly enough, one proposed solution to the Fermi paradox is kind of similar to Dead Space in this regard. It says that we're not finding any aliens because we're not looking at where they actually lived or died. For decades, scientists and sci-fi authors alike have imagined what life unlike anything we know might look like. One popular conception is life among the atmospheres of gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn. Imagine an entire ecosystem with aerial plankton grazed on by sky whales who are preyed upon in turn by flying sharks. Now, it sounds like a fanciful thing that some scientist on the ganja would think of, but none other than Carl Sagan was writing scientific papers on this in the 1970s, calculating the lives of what he called sinkers and floaters in the high atmospheres of Jupiter. Now, I don't think the jump from an organism like this to a brother moon in Dead Space, in the vacuum of space, is all that crazy. Imagine a creature in the high atmosphere of some gas giant, evolving to resist low pressures and high radiation environments for millions or perhaps billions of years. Eventually, like the transition that happened from water to land on Earth, these creatures cast off into the void, using internally generated gases to propel them and sensory organs to hone in on other worlds' magnetospheres for air, food, and water. These beings could exist in a state of suspended animation, like we know tardigrades on Earth can achieve, perhaps conserving metabolism and resisting cosmic radiation for tens of thousands of years while they move through the void looking for a new planet to feed on. It's certainly not the craziest idea I've ever heard in sci-fi. Think about it. If beings like this exist, then it seems like there's no one out there because we're only looking for signals from planets and stars. We wouldn't hear a thing. And we'd never get to hear from the dead planets that they fed on either. It's kind of a scary, fun idea, huh? Kind of like the game that came up with it. Until next time.
Okay. That wasn't as interesting as I thought it would be. This is similar. So, new solution to the Fermi paradox found. Scientists hope they're wrong. This is... friend of the channel, Destiny. No, this is Destiny Space. A little bit different.
Some call it the Great Silence, others the Fermi Paradox. For the last 60 years, we've had our eyes and ears glued to the cosmos, looking and listening for some sign letting us know we're not all alone in the galaxy. And the more we discover, the harder it is to believe we're the only ones. Think about this for a moment. There's around 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. Each one of those galaxies have on average 1 million stars. Some supergiants have 100 trillion stars.
Oh, this is bullshit. Look at this. So I'm skipping ahead. The zoo hypothesis. The alien I don't know what the alien hypothesis is. The Great Filter hypothesis. This is the new solution to the Fermi paradox. This was released 2 weeks ago. The new solution is the Great Filter hypothesis is not new. See when it actually was originated. Let's see. The Great Filter. Who coined it? Concept originates in Robin Hansen's argument. Is he even still alive? Yeah, look at that. Okay. When did he make that up? It's decades old by now, though. This isn't like some new thing scientists just came up with.
Stars, and our Milky Way galaxy has between one.
Here, let's see. So let's go here.
The very last thing could simply be that there just is no one else, and therefore there is no paradox. All of the scenarios that were previously mentioned assume those million.
Well, no, there is still a paradox. The paradox rests in the idea that there seems to be a proliferation of the basic ingredients for life, and yet no life emerges, or no life is visible or apparent to us. It's not that. It's not the conclusion. I don't know, whatever.
Millions of civilizations that we cannot contact actually do exist out there. But not all researchers agree with this and claim that the possibility of the emergence of life is overestimated.
Isaac Arthur has a lot of good videos about the Fermi paradox. I know he does, actually. I like Isaac Arthur. But this channel's just kind of garbage. I'm not happy about this. Like, this title, it's just a frickin' lie. Lies. Lies within lies. Alright, so much for that. No more Fermi paradox stuff, which is a shame, because that's my favorite type of thing. But apparently everyone's just eating out of the trash bin. I don't know. I don't know. Here's the audiobook of All Tomorrow. Now I'm going to buy a hard copy. Dark Forest is probably my favorite solution. Well, that's the solution that I make sense of the Necromorphs with, because the Necromorphs as like an evolved entity make no sense. They're inefficient in the extreme. It makes absolutely no sense for an organism to evolve to specify advanced life forms. That's dumb, unless its purpose unless it has a purpose, and that is to eliminate intelligent life forms in particular. I still think the filter is the most compelling. The thing is, the filter doesn't need to be an alien creature that's going through and eating intelligent life forms, right? The filter could just be there's some principle or tendency that means that once a species gets to a certain point of sophistication, something causes them to not survive that. So us, for example, it's distinctly possible that we destroy our biosphere, suffer catastrophic economic collapse, lose the ability to project ourselves to space or to other worlds, and eventually we just slowly dwindle. And that's it. That's a possibility. That's a thing that we could do. Necromorphs are dumber than Tyranids in Warhammer 40k. I don't know if that's true. The Necromorph moons themselves seem to be very intelligent. Nuclear war is a possible great filter? Possibly. So is disease, bioweapons. So is, like, how about something subtler? So, like, the explanation for the apocalyptic plague in The Last of Us is that there was a change in the Earth's temperature. This triggered adaptation among a species of fungi, and that just infected everything. That's a possibility. Like, just changes in biosphere that are the result of industry, triggering changes in evolution that make us no longer the dominant species. Kessler syndrome is a filter. I haven't heard that one before. What's Kessler syndrome? Let's see. The Kessler syndrome is a theoretical scenario in which Earth's orbit is overpopulated with objects and debris, preventing the use of satellites in certain sections of Earth's orbit. Would that be a filter, though? I don't know if that would be a filter. Because, like... Because what you could do is you could then interfere with the orbit of the debris. It would be a long process of collecting it. It would be very expensive. But eventually you could launch satellites sort of beyond, you know... The Great Filter could be just a step toward a galactic species. Well, I think that'd be the trigger point of the filter. Kessler syndrome is basically where we lock ourselves in. I don't think it's that we lock ourselves in. I think the point, though, is that it becomes impossible to have reliable satellites because there's so much debris they can't orbit without colliding. So we'd lose, like, satellite functionality. We wouldn't necessarily lose the ability to leave the Earth. Like, it's not talking about so much debris that there's literally a shell around the Earth, right? It would be dangerous, but... Like, think for a second about how much debris we're talking about for that to be the case. You're talking about, because it's in Earth's orbit, right? So it's at a, it's going to be a sphere that is larger than the surface of the Earth. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. And moreover, I don't think it would form a sphere, right? I don't think you would have, like, such an even spread of debris that would take place. That wouldn't make sense. No, Kessler is stopping space travel. How would it stop space travel, though? Because, like, I'm reading here, so... So, the Kessler syndrome, also called the Kessler effect, collisional cascading, or the ablation cascade, proposed by NASA scientist Donald J. Kessler in 1978, is a scenario in which the density of objects in low Earth orbit due to space pollution is high enough that collisions between objects could cause a cascade in which each collision generates space debris that increases the likelihood of further collisions. In 2009, Kessler wrote that modeling results had concluded that the debris environment was already unstable, such that any attempt to achieve a growth-free small debris environment by eliminating sources of past debris will likely fail, because fragments from future collisions will be generated faster than atmospheric drag will remove them. One implication is that the distribution of debris in orbit could render space activities and the use of satellites in specific orbital ranges difficult for many generations. Yeah, but not impossible, right? Like, I don't think you would... One little wrench hitting your shuttle and launch destroys it. Yeah, that's true. If a million bolts fly around the Earth insanely fast, we ain't getting out of it. Yeah, but, like, the thing I'm getting at, though, is that it's not just a matter of the amount of debris, it's where it's going. So, unless the debris is, like, you know, covering all possible lines, I don't know, maybe it makes sense and I'm just dumb. Like, I understand the concept. It takes a tiny piece of metal going at speed to do serious damage to any type of spacecraft, but it has to find you in the first instance, and it's not clear to me that even if you had a vast proliferation, even enough debris to actually coat the Earth in that way, that it would nonetheless spread in such a way as it actually does coat the Earth. Does that make sense? Kessler isn't just... Yeah, so it's not just like, oh, a satellite breaks up because it hits another satellite and then it creates a few more pieces that fly around it. It's that multiplied by, like, exponentially going up. So every piece that hits another piece splits into smaller pieces, and now you have, like, tiny little bits flying through. Even so, it would be a temporary issue. It's not about coating the Earth, though. Brooks, do you want to come on and chat about it? Disabuse me of my ignorance on this. No, you're reading your son to sleep? Ugh. Coward. Alright. It wouldn't need to coat the Earth? No, but like the trajectories would need to coat the Earth in order to make it absolutely the case that you couldn't launch into space, right? Because there should be, like, zones where there isn't, like, a tremendous amount of debris. And where you could, with a little luck, like, get through completely unscathed. You know? Can you come on? Yeah, sure. Be my guest. Are you in, do I have you on Discord? Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Here, I'm just going to turn you up a little bit. You're kind of quiet. There you go.
Yeah, so I think the basic idea is trying to say is that the trajectories would be unpredictable enough that there may potentially be safe areas, but it would make it so that
It'd be so risky. It'd be cost prohibitive to try.
Yeah, I think that's the basic idea.
Yeah, that makes sense to
I
me.
don't know if you're proposing something like, say, launching from polar regions, which I don't know enough about the physics to address it.
Yeah, me neither. But that's essentially what I am exactly talking about. So I don't know. Or launching from, I don't know, like, middle of the ocean? I don't know.
I don't think middle of the ocean would help because middle of the ocean is still going to have the trajectories potentially going from areas that are on land.
I guess what I'm not familiar with is, like, is there a common trajectory for most of our satellites? Because we don't inhabit most of the Earth's surface. We inhabit specific parts of the Earth's surface. So, stands to reason, you know, you'd want to cover as much of the inhabited parts of the Earth's surface in terms of your satellite positioning as possible. You're not going to have them on a trajectory where you have debris going in the direction of, like, spending a lot of its time traversing over, you know, empty surface area.
I'm not entirely sure about the whole about this situation. But Kessler syndrome is normally considered to be a temporary scenario where so the idea of it being something that would permanently lock a civilization on a planet is questionable.
What accounts for the temporariness of it? Is it just because eventually the debris, like, starts to follow, like, a pattern, and it starts to...
Eventually, a lot of the debris would be too close to Earth, and it would just fall down.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
It would be absolutely catastrophic at the beginning when satellites are because it would come up all at once, where a certain satellite breaks up and the debris goes in chaotic ways, in chaotic trajectories, hits other satellites and causes a chain reaction. But assuming that we aren't trying to launch new satellites, which would be conceivably impossible, then it would just, over time, have more leave the atmosphere, and maybe, depending on the severity, it could be a couple decades, could be centuries, but I personally doubt this would be a Fermi paradox great filter. It would just be a really big civilizational inconvenience.
Well, I guess the question, though, is at a certain stage, do you become dependent enough on these that this causes itself a cascading effect that causes civilizational decline or species decline, or facilitates and escalating some kind of climate catastrophe? But I guess at that point you're dealing with stuff that's so complex, it wouldn't be reliable.
It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be Kessler syndrome as the
Right.
cause of the Great Filter anymore. It would be some kind of other complexity collapse.
Well, yeah, because in addition, these are the results of specific decisions that were made. It would only take a species to simply not decide, or simply to have like to allow, for instance, a monopoly on the deployment of satellites or any kind of object in low orbit, in order to prevent that. It doesn't strike me as a very reliable filter if it relies on every single species entering late capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem that way either.
No. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying
Thank you.
that. Yeah. You have a good night.
Good night.
Good news, everyone. I'm just dumb. Here we go. Tomorrow. Awful thing. Awful thing. Remember that playing with fire bozo? Randomly calls me up to invite me onto a panel to discuss. Let me quote him directly here. Does a woman's body count affect her value as a partner? Probably like 3 mini topics. I will be there with Destiny, Andrew from the Crucible, Tomfoolery, some person called Niena. I don't know who that is. Let me look her up quickly. Small channel. Only about 288 subscribers. Tiny. Apparently a leftist streamer. Looks like she was on Modern Day Debate. Okay, well she might not be terrible. And Eudaimonia will also be joining us, so this will be interesting. Nina's cool? Well, that's good. She's a Twitch channel mainly. Alright, well actually I'm curious then. Let's see. So if I go on to her Twitch. Doesn't have a link to her Twitch. Well, here we go. Oh, she's got 10,000 subscribers on Twitch. She's big. She's a decent size there. Not a lot of views though. Let's see. Yeah, damn. 9-hour broadcast with 12 views. Well, that doesn't speak to quality. It's just unfortunate. But, yeah, so hopefully she'll be good. Hopefully this will be a break for her, if she is good. And hopefully this won't be too miserable for me. I should not have said yes, but I did. So we're going to do something theory-related afterwards to make up for it. That's my plan. Yeah. Does Destiny believe that a woman's body count affects her value as a partner? Destiny has made some strange life decisions if that's what he thinks. I don't think he's going to be on that side. I think this is going to be one of those cases where Destiny is still on the right side of things. Miraculously. But you never know. He's surprised us before. Anywho, this is a short stream, it's late, and I'm streaming tomorrow, and I'm taking someone to go donate blood tomorrow as well, right before my stream. So I'm going to get back to research, and I will see you all tomorrow afternoon / evening, depending on where you are in the world. If you like what I do and you want help support the channel, hard times on people, patronage is generally pretty low. Channel's doing well, but anything you can do helps tremendously. I'm going into essay writing mode, which means I'm going to be streaming a little bit less, but doing a lot more work. So there's a bit of a catch-22 there. I produce more essays, but the essays take a lot more work, and they bring in a lot less revenue. So if you want to help, there's a Patreon link in the description. It means the world. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Take care. I just made myself smaller. It didn't go away. Shoo.